Hello and welcome back to An Old Man Watches, where today I'm going to be talking about two Godzilla films that chalked up their 50th anniversaries in the last couple of years: 1972's Godzilla vs. Gigan and the subsequent year's Godzilla vs. Megalon. Now, the former film begins with a comic book artist pitching his idea for a homework monster to a publisher. This goes every bit as badly as you'd probably expect, so his somewhat exasperated girlfriend sends him to Godzilla Tower to make his pitch to the people there. They like the idea, which is merely the first very broad hint that there's something seriously wrong with them. The second hint is when our not so intrepid hero witnesses a young woman being chased from Godzilla Tower. She drops a tape, which he recovers. Later, she confronts him and they listen to the tape together. It doesn't make any sense to them, being just strange noises, but somehow, all the way over on the far distant Monster Island, Godzilla hears and knows this tape is bad news. You see, the people running Godzilla Tower are secretly alien cockroach creatures from outer space who plan to conquer the planet Earth with the use of two space monsters. These are returning adversary King Ghidorah and newcomer Gigan, after whom the film is named. Can even Big G himself hope to prevail against such odds? Well, of course he can. That's the nature of the franchise, and he wouldn't have been available to face the later threat of Megalon, the beetle monster from beneath the sea, had he failed. Now, Godzilla vs. Megalon begins with a nuclear weapons test in the Aleutian Islands, which unleashes a shockwave so massive that it rocks even Monster Island in the distant South Pacific, which means it must be quite the bomb. The bomb's shockwave also unleashes devastation on the ancient underwater civilization of Seatopia. The Seatopians are justifiably unhappy about this, and in an impressive display of doublethink, they decide to declare war on the surface world in order to preserve peace. The weapon of choice for this war is their god, Megalon. If you imagine a garishly coloured bipedal rhinoceros beetle, 80 feet tall, you've got some idea of what old Megsy looks like. Though I doubt most rhinoceros beetles can fire electrical blasts from their horn or spit explosive pellets from their mouths. Powerful though this beetle beast might be, Megalon is apparently not too bright, so the Seatopians go to Japan to steal a robot named Jet Jaguar as a means of controlling it. Quite why they wouldn't have their own control method already, what with Megalon being their monster, is the kind of plot point that this movie is good at ignoring. Presumably, because that's where Jet Jaguar was, the Seatopians decide to send Megalon to attack Japan. The film never says as much, so I'm making that bit up myself, but it's at least an in-narrative reason for the bizarre choice to attack Japan in order to punish the world for using nuclear weapons. In any case, as you might expect, kaiju battles ensue. So the bosses at Toho Films weren't very pleased with the somewhat offbeat style and narrative of Godzilla vs. Hedorah. I loved it, personally. And they reacted by vowing to return the franchise to its roots, by which they turned out to mean having Godzilla fight alien monsters. I'm pretty sure that Big G's actual roots were Godzilla is a force of devastation that will annihilate all Japan, but I guess the whole alien fighting thing had been his main shtick since he turned hero 8 years and 7 movies before this. These films are also being made in an era where the audience interest in kaiju films was dwindling, and I have to say, neither one of these movies offers much to reignite popular enthusiasm for the genre. But they do definitely share some common characteristics, so let's talk about those. The first and perhaps most problematic thing the films have in common is that they make very little sense. Godzilla vs. Gigan appears to have begun life as a very different script in which King Ghidorah, Gigan, and a third monster, which was cut for the film, presumably for budgetary reasons, would attack the Japanese exhibit at the World's Fair. Successive rewrites to target the film for a younger audience introduced a wealth of bewildering plot points. Why do the aliens disguise their activities under the guise of a distinctly odd theme park? How does playing the tape that controlled Gigan draw Godzilla's attention? Why don't the aliens ever try to control Godzilla himself? And as already hinted in my plot summary, Godzilla vs. Megalon has even more baffling plot decisions. The key one is, why can't the Seatopians, whom the film claims are far more advanced than humans, control their own monster without the aid of a human invention? Another might be, why does Godzilla have so little screen time in this movie? And the answers to both questions are probably one and the same. Godzilla vs. Megalon was not originally planned to be a Godzilla movie. It was originally planned as a launch vehicle for Jet Jaguar, the robot in this film, as a cash-in on the rising success of Tokatsu and giant robot cartoons. Toho's executives got cold feet on the idea at the last minute, though, and they wedged in Big G and Gigan, probably because the costume for the latter was new and in good condition, in an effort to shore up interest. What it actually does, though, is create a narrative muddle. An obvious structural choice shared by both films is that they're each anchored by a 2-on-2 conflict. In the first film, this is Ghidorah and Gigan versus Godzilla and Anguirus, though frankly Anguirus is so useless in the fights that it's practically a 2-on-1 handicap match, while in the second movie, Megalon gets paired with returning Gigan to face off with Godzilla and Jet Jaguar. Now, as you know, if this shift to 4 monster fight scenes had been driven by the right motivations, I think it could well have refreshed the franchise. As can be seen in professional wrestling, a multi-way battle like this offers storytelling scope that a traditional one-on-one bout does not. You can have double team attacks, 2-on-1 beatdowns, and last-minute saves from your buddy. Or at least you can if your buddy isn't a useless lump like Anguirus. 2-on-2 fights could have been a way for the Godzilla franchise to offer up more dynamic, varied battle scenes, but alas, that's not what happens. Frankly, the best kaiju action across both these two films isn't a fight at all, it's the initial rampage of the bad guys in Godzilla vs. Gigan. The two evil space monsters go on a pretty good tear, offering by far the most entertaining set piece of either film as they blow up and smash office blocks, refineries, and any human forces that try to stop them. So, why did the 2-on-2 structure not make for more dynamic fights? Well, simply put, because more dynamic fights was never the motivation for adding in the 2-on-2 battles. Saving money by recycling old footage and existing costumes was the motivation. Both these movies feature a whole lot of reused footage. In fact, the inclusion of King Ghidorah as an enemy in Godzilla vs. Gigan was apparently made on the basis not of the monster's popularity, but on the question of which kaiju gives us the biggest amount of existing footage that we can reuse. Now, using recycled footage doubtless achieved its intended purpose of saving some cash, and to be fair, much of that fun rampage sequence that I mentioned earlier is primarily constructed of reused material. But it's an approach that also offers some potential drawbacks if you're not careful. For instance, the designs of both Godzilla and King Ghidorah have changed over time, and splicing bits from multiple different films together means that the same kaiju look different from scene to scene. Not just that, but if you pay close enough attention, you might even see brief background images of kaiju that aren't even supposed to be in this movie. Oopsie. But hey, at least recycling is kind of on brand for the franchise, I guess, since in keeping with other Godzilla films of this era, environmental concerns are at the core of the conflict. Gigan's cockroach monsters ostensibly want to stop humanity ruining this planet the way that the planet that they inherited was ruined by humanoids, while the Cetopians are worried by the possible devastation caused by nuclear weapons. Some clumsily integrated positive environmental messaging doesn't in any way make up for the deficiencies of these two films, however. They're definitely among the weaker entries in the Godzilla franchise. Next time, I finally got around to seeing Wicked, Part 1, at theatres, so let's talk about that. But that is next time. Until then, thanks for watching this video. I hope you enjoyed it, and if you've seen either of these films, let me know what you thought of them.